Right, hello everybody. I wish to talk about the sex of God, whether God is a male or female. Now, it is in our society today, everybody does seem to assume that God is a male. This has been true for the last about 2,000 years or more. It is true that some people are now questioning this now, and I believe the Church of England now they are talking about God as being male or female. Um, Now, a lot of people may think, well, what's the big fuss about? Why would you worry about whether God is a male or female? And certainly not at all religions think of that like that. Like Buddhism, they think in terms of God as being nirvana, which is not really male or female, or Taoism in China, ancient Chinese religion, where the Tao is basically, again, is not defined as being male or female, but in the Tao Li Ching, they does call the Tao the mother. So, um, but of course, in ancient times, you did actually have ideas of the Great Mother who actually gave birth to the universe and gave birth to everything we are. So the idea of God being a woman is not a new idea, but people will still say, well, yeah, but does it really matter? And it does. If you are basically into prayer or meditation, certainly people in prayer try to pray to God basically, and if they pray to a man or woman God, it makes a big difference. We find in, say, Christianity in times gone by that they had a definition of a masculine God. Well, what is masculine? Masculine is basically aggression, competition, force, and even violence. So if you're praying to a God like this, then you would expect him to be quite aggressive with you. So much so that in the past Christians called themselves God-fearing people because they actually feared God because he was so aggressive and nasty, and basically if you didn't do what he said or what the priest told you he said, you could go to hell and save and suffer everlasting punishment basically. So trying to meditate or to pray to a God like this is not a very good idea because, it's not really conducive to being at peace and harmony, is it? Of course, Jesus in the New Testament talked about God being a loving Father God, but again, it's still be a masculine God basically, and if you think of a loving Father God, then it comes across as being a bit of a wimp in that way. But if we talk about God as being a female, then we have a totally different way of looking at things. In the mystics, when they talk about God, they talk about one mind, one spirit, and talk about in terms of God being in harmony and love and this sort of thing. And they are characteristics that are more of females than males. So therefore, when you are meditating or in prayer, and you're tuning into a God that is feminine, it's easy to think of her as being at one with everything, as being harmony, and to give us unconditional love. Certainly in the past, I mean, if you talk about goddesses of love, you talk about something like Venus or Aphrodite. They were goddesses of love, you know. So therefore, it's easy to think of terms of a female creator that creates us all and loves us all unconditionally. And this is very important if you really think of terms of people who pray to God for help and guidance. A masculine God is not actually going to do that for you, really. I mean, it's not going to... You wouldn't actually ask for help and guidance from a very masculine God. But it makes more sense if you talk in terms of you're praying to a God that is female, a mother, and as a mother, she loves all her children unconditionally, so she would love us all unconditionally. So it actually makes a lot more sense to think in terms of God being female. And also, when we ask for help, we again would not be asked for, you know, when you're looking for a masculine God, you don't really expect help from you. Unless you believe yourself to be good and you are following all the rules of the church you go to and this sort of thing. But if you look for help from a feminine God, then you would actually expect her to give you whatever you want. And perhaps this in a way brings up a whole positive way of thinking to the world we live in. Because we believe that God is male, we are intent cut off from him. Because when you tune into a feminine God, then you tune into oneness. And so therefore it would be a very... so therefore you are tuning into the raw nature of God. When you're trying to tune into a masculine God, then you are well away from that oneness, that one mind, the one spirit. So therefore you're not in tune with God anymore, because you're like trying to tune into a radio station. You know, if you are on the wrong frequency. It's only when we tune into a female God that is all loving, all caring and harmony and love, that we can contact God and be at one with her and one with all that there is. So we become, in meditation and prayer, become in harmony. So therefore the nature of God is very, very important. And if we want to really know God, then we have to think of her as a female. And if we want to have her help us, give us wisdom and help, then it makes far, far more sense to see her in that way.